Council's adjourned.
The agency is adjourned. And we do have another meeting, so if
Yes,
we can
we
keep
do.
the conversation, maybe take it out into the hall.
Thanks for the loan. Thanks for the loan.
Oh, sure.
I don't know why I left it somewhere back there.
Okay, welcome to the December 14th, 2010 meeting of the Glendale Redevelopment Agency. Can we have a roll call, please?
Agency members Draymond,
Fitting.
Here.
Najarian,
Here.
Quintero,
Here.
Weaver,
Here.
Chair Friedman.
Here, can we hear your report, please?
Agenda for the December 14, 2010 regular meeting of the Glendale Redevelopment Agency was posted on Thursday, December 9, 2010 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. What's next?
Next is approval of minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, by unanimous consent, the minutes are approved. What is next, please?
Next is oral communications. No cards were submitted specifically for oral communications.
What's next?
On the business agenda before you today at 6A is a public hearing, Director of Community Planning and Community Redevelopment and Housing regarding 18-space parking exception requested by CrossFit Fitness for a property located at 425 North Brand Boulevard. At A1 is a motion approving parking exception based on findings and conditions.
Thank you. Mr. Lansafane.
Ms. Chair, members of the Redevelopment Agency, this is a parking exception, as noted, at 425 North Brand. The applicant will be taking 3,000 square feet of a 7,300 square foot building. The business CrossFit is a little bit unique fitness center that combines gymnastics, weightlifting, and metabolic conditioning. Because of the requirements of the particular class, the applicant feels that they wouldn't have any more than 10 students or participants in any one class. The classes do have limited hours, Monday through Friday, in the early morning, midday, and then later on in the evening. The lease that the applicant is signing does come with one space on site. In addition to that, there are 8 spaces off-site, catty corner, a block away, that are being leased. The need by code is for 30. There is a credit of 12 spaces from the prior use. With the limitations on number of people participating in the classes and the fact that the hope that many people will be walking to this from office buildings or what have you, we believe that the parking is sufficient. One thing to note, there is in our mobility plan that is coming to you, it's working its way through the TPC and the Planning Commission, is a proposal to change our change of use limits. Currently, if you have 2,000 square feet or less, you don't need to provide any additional parking. We are proposing in that to raise that to 5,000. Were the council to approve that, this project wouldn't need the parking exception. Two conditions to note. This parking exception will run with the use, not with the land. And we would want to put a limitation of 10 students, a maximum of 10 students. That concludes our report. The applicant is here, as well as the project manager that worked on this, if you have any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Okay, I'm going to go to the public. Arthur Magnesarian, are you the applicant?
I'm not. I'm a supporter.
Okay. Would the applicant like to speak first? You don't have to speak if you don't. Is the applicant here? Yeah. You don't have to speak, but if you want to speak, I'll give you the opportunity to speak first.
It's the guy without the tie.
Recommend open the public hearing.
I will open the public hearing.
If you have any questions,
Okay, why don't we go to the public first, and then we'll see if staff has any questions. Okay. Mr. Magnesarian, please. If you want to speak.
not just supporter.
Okay, we'll just let the record show that he was here as a supporter. Helen McConna.
He did receive the letter you sent.
Good afternoon. It seems like I'm here on a weekly basis now. Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council and City staff. I'm Helen McDonough, President of the Downtown Merchants Association, and The DGMA recommends that the city approve the parking exemption as requested by CrossFit at 425 North Brand. The DGMA believes that retail service businesses like CrossFit, which are not going to be found at mall locations, are appropriate uses in the downtown retail district. They attract repeat clientele who are likely to patronize other downtown retail service and restaurant businesses. The CrossFit use, as proposed, appears to be a low-impact business in terms of parking needs. It also happens to be located where street parking is currently underutilized. And I'll just add a comment about the 10 that Phil mentioned, the 10 in the class. That would be 10 times more people going in and out of that building than I've seen in the last couple of years. So I think it would bring a lot of life to the 400th block. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. Are there any questions or comments from...
Just one comment. I can see giving this place the parking exception. Why? You go over to the parking lot behind Porto's. Those people will not walk a half a block to the garage. They'll circle that lot till they can park and walk 20 feet. The people that are going to this exercise location, if they aren't willing to walk a block or 2 or 3 or 4, I'd be very surprised. They're not going to look to park right behind the building and walk in the door. So you don't need the parking spaces right around. They'll walk there.
Mr. Najarian.
What was the prior use? Was this the...
I believe it was a retail store, antique furnitures, or antiques.
It used to be Chasen's.
Yes.
Jason's, so that's how many square feet is the entire...
The entire building is 7,300, and the applicant will be, they'll subdivide it, and they'll take 3,000.
I appreciate that the applicant is aware of our concerns as to the number of students or numbers of patrons that would be using it. I just want to reiterate that I feel that we have been burned by some of the other intensive gym uses that other businesses have been entitled to, especially with the parking. And I'm glad that that those concerns in this application have been addressed. Surprising how much an impact a particular type of business can make to Brand Boulevard when it's just flooded with patrons and they just gobble up all the on-street parking. That has changed recently. We have taken steps. In fact, many of our steps and our policies have been geared towards mitigating the impacts of a high-intensity health spa, health club. And I appreciate this applicant sensitivity to that and the, I guess, the business plan that he's envisioning for the use of his premises. So I'm okay with these exemptions.
Thank you. I'll just add a few comments. First, I should have known who the applicant was because he's the fittest guy in the room, so I apologize for that. I agree I don't have a problem with this use. Personally, my philosophy is a little different than about the downtown. I feel that we should try to encourage as many people as we can, and if we run out of parking, we have publicly owned open-air parking lots that we could build new parking structures on. To me, that would be a good thing to happen, not a bad thing to happen. What I would prefer is to lift the requirement to keep the classes limited to 10 people. I find that a little onerous for the operator, possibly, and the space is only 3,000 square feet, so it's not like he can shove 200 people in there. He's never going to be 24-hour fitness in a space that small. So to me, whether he has 10 people or 12 people or 13 people is really not that important, and I would prefer to not have to saddle him with having to count heads if he's got an extra person or if one of his customers wants to bring their husband one day or something like that. So that would be, that's my feeling about that, but I would leave that to the other agency members.
Agreed.
I'd just like to make a statement that I didn't realize that the applicant is Mr. Zare Amirian, a gentleman with whom I have extensive friendship and past history, both with him personally and his family, and he's my appointee to the commission. So to avoid any appearance of impropriety, I'm going to
So your conflict.
abstain from, I don't think it's a financial, but
Say perceived.
see, to avoid the
Potential.
appearance of any.
Better hope it's
Thank
not a
you.
2-2 vote here.
And should you remove yourself from the chambers?
Only for a financial conflict under
Am I allowed to order him
city
out?
guidelines.
Just kidding. Sorry, I'm just seeing how far I can take this, chair thing. Okay, so do we have a motion?
So moved.
Well, wait a minute now. You made some comments about not being concerned about how many people are going to be trained at any one time, and I am. I mean, I don't want to set up a situation where it goes from 10 to 20 or even 25, once again, if this becomes a successful business. So how do the rest of you
Can
feel
we
about
ask
it?
him?
Because
Maximum
no, I don't need to
vote.
ask him, Mr. Weaver. I mean, it's up to us to make the decision. Are we going to set it at a certain limit, or what are we going to do? Because I'm not going to allow an open, I mean, this is a lot of square footage, so I don't want to allow an open situation where it sort of mushrooms into a larger usage.
Okay. Mr. Draymond?
Well, we can leave it the way it is and hope that it is gangbusters and that Mr. Marion will be back saying, you know what, we want to lift this.
Right.
And that'll be the only heavy lifting he'll get from me anyway. So, no, I mean, that works for me. But I do understand and recognize the chair's comment and agree to it somewhat. But if there are some concerns, let's leave it how it is for now and move forward. And we're sure to hear if they need more,
Oh, yeah. He'll be back.
if they need to lift that. So.
Okay.
The way it was. That's my motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Can we have a roll call, please?
Agency members Draymond?
Yes.
Najarian?
Abstain?
Quintero?
Yes.
Weaver?
Aye.
Chair Friedman?
Yes.
4-0.
Congratulations. Okay, what's next, please?
B on the agenda, Director of Community Planning and Community Redevelopment and Housing regarding professional services agreement with Shimoda Design Group in connection with the exterior design of the building for the Museum of Neon Art Mona to be located at 212 South Brand Boulevard and adjacent property. B1 is a motion approving change order in the amount of $252,000 for a new non-to-exceed contract total of $292,000.
Okay, do we have a staff report? Mr. Lansington?
Ms. Chair, members of the agency, Shimoda Design was retained by the agency to do some conceptual drawings for the Mona building. If you will recall, in our preliminary business agreement with them, we are responsible for exterior improvements, and it would be regardless of who goes in there. We would want to clean the building up to make it usable. Mr. Shimoda has worked with the agency and got into that conceptual design. We now are asking for a change order to complete that design, do the construction drawings, all the oversight, and I would say that this fee includes all the structural and electrical and engineering that would be done outside of his firm. Staff is recommending approval. And again, this is coming to you whenever we exceed $50,000 on a contract. Bring it back for the agency's approval.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? Mr. Weaver?
Just want to clarify, you referred to it as the Mona building, but it isn't the Mona building yet.
No, sir.
It's the building that the Mona would come into eventually. And it will include the arcade area to the north?
Yes, so we have a preliminary agreement on that, and if we can purchase that, we'll include that all.
Okay, so I want to make sure.
Other discussion?
I just have a question. So just so I'm clear, the original contract was for $40,000, and we're bumping that to $292,000.
Is the
Correct. We're adding $252,000.
Just the architectural and engineering?
Yes.
Both.
So did we not anticipate that it was going to be in that range, or we just took a small bite?
We took a small bite. And Mr. Weaver just said something that triggered for me. We would ask this contract to be up to an additional $252,000, because there are some engineering details that we won't know until we demo the buildings. So it may be less than this amount is what I'm getting at.
May I add, it's no different than when Raul Porto expanded Porto's Bakery. Spent a couple million. It needed seismic retrofitting and dry rot, termites, et cetera, et cetera. So he spent way more than he thought he was going to spend in there. So this is another one of the old vintage buildings. You don't know what you're going to get into until you get in there.
We have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Agency members Draymond.
Yes.
Najarian.
Yes.
Quintero.
Yes.
Weaver.
Aye.
Chair Friedman.
Yes. What is next, please?
C is Director of Community Redevelopment and Housing regarding Alex Regional Theater Quarterly Report prepared by the Glendale Arts for the period of July 1st through September 30th, 2010. C1 is a motion to know and file report for the first quarter of fiscal year 2010-2011.
Thank you. Mr. Lansafane.
As chair, members of the agency, pursuant to our management agreement with Glendale Arts to operate the Alex Theater, they give us a quarterly report of the activities of the theater. This is that report for the first quarter. That's July through September. In summary, a good quarter for the Alex Theater. Attendance was up. The total days of activity was up. The net rental revenue was up, largely because of the TV show Last Comic Standing that filmed I believe, in July and September. The theater was able to increase its reserve. We also have replaced and refurbished the stage fly system, which goes, I understand, over the stage, and you hang different sets and lighting and things. The theater ended the quarter with a net surplus, which includes that management fee that the redevelopment agency pays to Glendale Arts. The executive director, Barry McComb, is here if you have any specific questions. But we're pleased with the direction, and given some confirmed bookings in the next quarter, we hope to see this continue, this positive trend continue.
Perfect. Does anybody?
Yeah, I'd like to ask Mr. McComb a question.
Before he asks his question, is it true that Lady Gaga is going to be playing next season?
Yeah, in our wildest dreams.
She will be somewhere.
She'll be somewhere.
Yes. I think it's a safe bet she will be somewhere.
McComb, now they got you here. A few weeks ago, I got my head in a sling or whatever with my buddy next to me. I just wanted to clarify with you, because I used your name in talking about it. I said that we'd had a conversation at one time, and I said, why can't you have New York-style productions there in the theater? And you said, well, it's wide enough, but it's not deep enough. I finished my comments. This gentleman here told me what I didn't know. I felt like I was, I didn't feel too smart.
We all
at that
can't be
time.
engineers, Mr. Weaver.
I know, but you're in the theatrical field, and you said you were the one contacted when we were talking about rehabbing the Alex Theater years back. So I just wanted to,
One of them.
if you could clarify, I thought I heard you right, but
You're probably referring to a conversation you and I had
yes.
going back several years ago.
Yes.
There's a company called Theater League, which is a national promoter of Broadway shows, that we came very close to actually signing an agreement with to bring Broadway shows to Glendale. Unfortunately, when they started to look at the shows they were going to bring in and the footprint that those shows were going to require as far as the stage width and depth, they discovered that the majority of those shows could not fit into the Alex. And it really came down to the depth of the shows. That's a company that actually does shows in Thousand Oaks, at the Granada up in Santa Barbara. I think they also do Long Beach. And that's really what precluded us from finalizing that deal. When you really get down to it, there's other issues as far as wing space. Because the Alex sits subterranean, we don't have the flexibility that actually some Broadway theaters have that also have limited stage space where between, set changes, they actually roll sets out into the alleyway. We can't do that because you have to lift the sets up and move them, out the doorway. So there's many challenges that exist. Some of those we're able to deal with, but the size of the stage is the primary thing that really prevents us from doing what you might consider a traditional Broadway show. But if I can take that just a step further and also clarify when we talk Broadway shows what we mean by that. Phantom of the Opera, when it first comes off Broadway and comes to Los Angeles, is not going to come to Glendale. It's going to go to the Pantages Theater. The Broadway shows that would come to Glendale are the ones after it comes through and it does its primary run playing the Pantages Theater, then they come out for their secondary runs, and typically they're scaled down slightly. You don't have the top billed, actors and actresses, and they go out on what they call their secondary tier circuits. Those are the ones that would have come to Glendale, that go on to Thousand Oaks and Santa Barbara.
And we were both right. New York style.
Now,
it's a second run through.
if I can use this opportunity for a commercial message, we actually do have 2 national tours coming to the Alex Theater in January. And I was actually hoping I might have an opportunity to promote those today. The first is the Screwtape Letters, which is a C.S. Lewis adaptation of a C.S. Lewis novel that has been playing at the West Side Theater in New York City for over 300 performances. That's coming to the Alex Theater on January 15th. We're one of just 3 theaters on the West Coast that it's coming to. It's already selling very well, and they're talking about adding another performance. And then at the end of January, we have Menopause the Musical, which is coming for a multiple run of dates. They've actually been talking about coming out here for a year. And I have to give credit to Maria Sahakian of my staff, because she's worked very long and hard at finalizing that show. So these are not big Broadway productions, but they are theatrical productions and national tours of theatrical productions, and we're very thrilled at having them come. So if you're interested in tickets, you can contact our box office or go to our website at alextheater.org. So that's my commercial message, and thank you.
Step up a little.
Mr. Draymond.
Well, I will certainly thank you for bringing us a commercial message. Just to point out to the audience, as Barry did say, though, neither of those shows are national tours of Broadway shows. So they are national tours.
Tours, correct. Yes.
And that was the crux of it. Barry, the discussion points were ones you addressed. My comment was it's not just the depth of the theater. We also don't have any wing space to speak of there. And the fly space was addressed earlier by Mr. Lansafame. But the bottom line is it's my comments that Mr. Weaver is referring to have more to do with the fact that we're in the shadow of the L.A. market. So you're not going to see a Broadway first tour come to Glendale, and that's the economics of it more than anything else.
We unfortunately live in the shadow of Los Angeles for almost everything we do.
Being an engineer and not being into the theater arts
means you earned a living.
Okay, but where it threw me a little, because one thing that you do at the Alex Theater every year, that there's no other place in the San Fernando Valley where you can do it. That's where the Academy Awards voters can come to the Alex Theater in Glendale to view. We're the only place in the San Fernando Valley. So that kind of got me thinking, well, we can compete with Pantages stuff where I understand now we can't. No, that's right. Right? Academy.
We have the largest screening facility with state-of-the-art screening capabilities in Los Angeles. We're larger than the El Capitan. That's when we upgraded to the surround sound.
We have the surround sound, we have the video.
So we do cast and crew screenings on occasion. We have done some Academy screenings in the past. Most Academy screenings, for those of you who are familiar with them, happen in smaller facilities, many times on studio lots. The studios like to rent out by the hour rather than by the day, so that does preclude us from doing some of that business, but it's also brought us a lot of the cast and crew screenings, which is good business for us.
Barry, is last remaining seats going to come back to the Alex?
They tend to use us when some of the theaters downtown are unavailable. This year is actually the 100th anniversary of the Palace Theater, I believe, down there, so they're not coming back this year, but we're hopeful that we'll get them next June. Yep.
Any other questions, Mr. Draymond?
Just a comment. As we look at this item, this is I don't think enough people realize what a wonderful regional theater the Alex is. not just as a historic site, but as a facility. It's a wonderful facility. And the improvements that have been done there have made it even more so. So it is a desirable location, and it is a very well-managed, not to embarrass you, but it is a very well-managed facility.
We have a great staff that's been with us a long time, and actually one of the reasons we got the C.S. Lewis production was they looked at a lot of different theaters, came out, did a site survey, loved the venue, loved our technical capabilities, and we have the show.
By the way, Madam Chair, I say that not as an engineer. I say,
I hope not.
Unfortunately, I've worked in a lot of these facilities, and so this is a great facility. Very desirable region.
My best times at the Alex Theater were back in the 1940s, when all the kids would come down there to see the cartoons on Saturday morning at the Alex Theater. Remember, those days there was no such thing as television. So you want to see cartoons, you'd go to the theater to see them. And U.S. News highlights.
Well, I think the major point of our report to you this quarter is it appears that the tide is turning and we're seeing an upswing again. And based on our bookings through the rest of the year, we're looking for a very strong year. So.
Perfect.
Yep.
Glad to hear it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We don't need any kind of motion, right?
I'd like to move 6C1.
Second.
You have a roll call?
Agency members Draymond,
Yes.
Najarian.
Yes.
Quintero.
Yes.
Weaver.
Right.
Chair Friedman.
Yes. What's next, please?
He is Director of Administrative Services and Community Redevelopment and Housing regarding annual financial report of the Glendale Redevelopment Agency. At D1 is a motion accepting the annual financial report, including any addenda or modifications.
Hey.
Good evening. While I don't have a commercial, I do have a report for submission, our annual Redevelopment Agency financial report. It is an unqualified opinion, which is the highest that can be given by our auditors, or your auditors. Peter George, a director with McGladrey and Pullen, is here if you have any specific questions.
It's been audited, right?
It was a good, clean audit.
You assure us of that.
I can assure you of that. He can assure you of that.
Nowadays, you wonder about audits,
Raymond.
Well, I just have one question for our Director of Finance. It's a good, clean audit as opposed to what?
Well,
That's a good question.
outside of an unqualified, there are several other ratings of qualified opinion. Probably go into it better. I've been out of the business for a while.
Good afternoon, members of the agency. There is 4 types of opinion we could issue on your financials. The unqualified opinion is the cleanest opinion we would issue. That means that the audit was performed in accordance to generally accepted auditing standards, and in the case for the agency, government auditing standards, and that the financials were prepared and the footnotes are in a way that is consistent with generally accepted accounting principles, or what we call GAAP. The other 3 types of opinions that we could issue would be a qualified opinion, an adverse opinion, or a disclaimer of opinion. You would get a disclaimer of opinion if we were basically not able to audit the entire agency, or if the information or supporting evidence was not sufficient enough for us to opine on the quality or quantity of the information. So that's one of the most severe, because we're basically saying we can't audit the entire agency. An adverse opinion, a qualified, would be a departure from GAAP, that management would not be willing to basically conform the financials to being consistent with, or again, the supporting documentation is not sufficient enough for us to render a clean opinion. So typically, you don't see those kind of opinions unless there was an egregious lack of supporting documentation, or the scope was limited or perverted in some way.
So it was an unqualified success.
Yes.
Just the opposite of what you...
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Motion 6D1.
We have a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Agency members Draymond,
Yes.
Najarian.
Yes.
Quintero.
Yes.
Weaver.
Right.
Chair Friedman.
Yes. What is next, please?
Agency member staff comments.
I have a comment. I am very happy to report that last Friday was the opening of the first GATE project, which is the Art in Vacant Storefronts project that this redevelopment agency approved many, many months ago. The project is in a vacant space at 101 North Brand, next to BJ's Restaurant, everybody's favorite pizza bar, right across from the Galleria. It's actually in 3 spaces in the building. The first space is downstairs, directly next to BJ's. The other 2 spaces are upstairs next to California Pizza Kitchen, which you can access by going up the escalator or up the elevators in 101 North Brand. And I recommend that anybody who's interested in art either take a walk over there or just glance over as you're driving by on Brand, because it is visible at night. It's lit up. You can see the art, they're all installations, most of which were site-specific, created specifically for those spaces. You can see them from the window and from the street. They were designed to be seen not from the inside of the building, but from the outside through the windows. The show downstairs, I think, has 5 artists, and then upstairs there's another 4, I believe, 4 or 5 artists on display. The works have a very wide variety. There's sculpture, there are installations. There's a wonderful architectural model that the artist has promised to let us use here in City Hall. It's actually a model of Glendale, a 3-dimensional model of Glendale that's interactive, where you can move the buildings around, sort of play around with different buildings in Glendale. And it's a lot of fun, and something that if council or staff would allow, I would love to have in the bottom of City Hall for people to see and interact with. But it's a great exhibit. I think that, I feel very proud to have it here. And as I said on opening night, you can't have too much arts and culture, but you can't have too many dark, vacant windows. And this helps to solve both problems. And what I'm hoping is that when other property owners that have vacancies see the success of this installation and how it makes the space look beautiful and alive and desirable, that they'll allow their properties to be used for exhibits. We have a lot of artists. We had over 200 applications of artists who wanted to have their work shown. And as of now, we only have a few of the property owners who are allowing us to use their space. So I'm hoping that if any of them are listening right now, that they'll come forward and let us put the art in their windows. It's no cost to them. It's fully insured by us. We can be out of there in a moment's notice if they rent the space, so there's really no downside. So thanks for the announcement, and I hope that everybody takes a look at it and lets us know what you think. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We are adjourned.